Hello and welcome to Wine This Week with Scott Leek. In this week's episode, we explore an everyday drinking red wine from Piedmont, Italy. And in the tip of the week, what do restaurant sommeliers want from you? All that's coming up next. Welcome again to Wine This Week. This is Barbera. We're in northern Italy in the region of Piedmont. And Piedmont has two distinct grape varietals that really stand out. Number one is Nebbiolo, and Nebbiolo is kind of the king of Italian grapes. It's made in the regions of Barbaresco and Barolo. We'll get into those when we get to the ends alphabetically, but those are huge, powerful, very tannic, very strong wines that need a lot of aging. Barbera, on the other hand, is a very easy drinking, good to drink young wine. And in Italy, in Piedmont, it's kind of known as the people's wine because it's so accessible and it can be found on just about any table at any meal. It's not that expensive. I think I paid about $20 for this one. And you really don't have to break the bank on a Barbera. And I think this is a really good value among Italian red wines. So I'm excited to get started with this. Inside Piedmont, there's two major regions where you can find Barbera. I mean, it makes up half of the grapes planted in Piedmont, and it's the second most planted grape in all of Italy, and you're actually starting to see it in the US a little bit too. But within Piedmont, there is the region of Alba and Asti, where Barbera is primarily grown. So you might have heard of Asti Spumante. So this is Barbera d'Asti, so Barbera of Asti. And this is going to be a little bit different than the Alba version of Barbera. A little bit more refined, a little bit more elegant is supposed to be the difference. I don't have the two side by side to contrast them. But this should be a really nice, really easy drinking wine, high acidity, low tannin, a lot of fruit, and I'm hoping it's just lovely. So let's get started. All right. Let's try some Barbera. So, first thing I notice is that this is a lovely colored wine. It's not quite as light as a Pinot Noir, but it's definitely lighter than like a Cabernet or Zinfandel or a Syrah. It's in between them. It's a great color, and this nice ruby magenta colored red. It's very clear. It's very bright. Beautiful. On the nose, okay, I expected Barbera to smell and taste a certain way, and I'm already off base from everything I've read. This is powerful. This has got a really intense nose. Okay. I can tell it's young, and I can tell there's some booze in this. This is 15% alcohol. That's really high, particularly for a grape like Barbera. So Barbera is supposed to be very high in acidity and low in tannins. I didn't think alcohol got that high on Barbera, and particularly for a wine that in Piedmont is kind of their everyday drinking wine that's found on every table. That's the people's wine. This really surprises me. I probably should have done a better job of looking at that before I bought it and tried to find a representative Barbera. Okay, so on the nose, lots of red fruit. This is sour cherry, this is strawberry. I get a little licorice, which is pretty cool. And some floral notes, I'm gonna call it violet. And there's really no spice, no vanilla, no oak, because this was macerated and fermented in stainless steel tanks, and it shows. In the US, they are starting to do Barbera and making it in oak barrels, but Italy's not doing it very much just yet. Some places are. All right, let's give this a taste. Wow. Okay. It's sweeter than I thought it was going to be. Not It's not that it's not dry, and I don't want to turn anyone off who's like, I only drink dry red wines. It's dry, but it's sweeter than I thought it was going to be. And I'm wondering, with the alcohol at 15%, if maybe they just, the yeast didn't get all the sugar. Maybe there was some residual sugar left over in this, but it doesn't taste sugary. It's just jammy. And all right, I'm going to pause and come back to that. Tannin level, higher than I thought it was going to be, but it's still not even medium on the tannins. I got a little bit like on the inside of my gums, my inside of my lip, where maybe it kind of caught on my teeth a little bit. But hopefully I'm not like sounding horrible in the mic here, because I am salivating and this is juicy. So the acidity level is what I thought it was going to be. It's kind of that medium high, medium plus level on the acidity. But so is the alcohol. That alcohol's there. I can feel a little bit of the heat. Not bad, but I can feel the heat. It's not what I thought in terms of, I thought the alcohol would be more pronounced in the palate. It does seem that the intensity of the fruit is kind of suppressing it a little bit. Overall body, it's a medium bodied wine. It's not quite full, which I thought going into this, it was going to be a little bit lighter than it is. Seeing the alcohol and smelling it, I thought it was going to be maybe fuller than it is. It's in between the two. This is kind of a medium bodied wine. Fruit wise, I'll do this one more time. It's beautiful. So that sour cherry, strawberry, and I'm getting some baking spices. So this is making me think that somebody made one of the weirdest pies and took some sour cherries, took some strawberries, baked it in a pie. And I'm getting this little weird bit of caramel, like somebody drizzled a little bit of caramel on top as if it was an apple pie. But it's this weird sour cherry strawberry pie with these baking spices. I get a little bit of the licorice, but not as much as I did on the nose. And I don't really get the violet or any floral notes in the palate as much. It's jammy, which I think of like Australian Shiraz when I think of jammy, but that's more of a black fruit jammy. This is a red fruit jammy, which is kind of unique and cool. I'm digging it. But again, it's different than what I expected it to be. What I really like about it is the finish is very consistent. Sometimes you get a finish that's either really short or it kind of meanders a little bit. This is a nice even keel and fairly medium length finish. I'm still kind of tasting it. It's not overly complex. There's not a ton going on here. Like I said, it's a lot of fruit, which is, for a lot of people, a nice fruit-forward red wine is great. And I can see how this could be an everyday drinking wine. I'd love to try a Barbera with less alcohol and see how much different it tastes. That's nice. I'm not quite going to give it a 7. And I don't know if it's the 2018 vintage or if it was this particular winemaker, but that alcohol being at 15% is just a little much for what I think this grape should be. What do I know? It's better than a 6. This is a 6.5. I'm going to call this good. 6.5 on my 10-point scale. And as far as a food and wine pairing goes, I like to do what grows together goes together. So I'm thinking kind of what's some quintessential Piedmont cuisine. They're not as big in the tomato sauce there as they are in the southern regions or in like Sicily, more like butter and olive oil. So rather than like a chicken cacciatore, I'm thinking more chicken marsala here. Some of the earthiness of the mushrooms might complement the fruit here well, and some of the sweetness of the marsala might go well with how kind of fruity and sweet this is in a sense. So yeah, I'm gonna go chicken marsala for this. If you like to just do wine and cheese pairings, this would be a good one to just sip and enjoy with cheese. Maybe a soft brie, or maybe if you're going to a semi-firm, maybe go up to a Havarti. But this has got potential to taste good with a lot of different cheeses. So yeah, so if you find yourself at a nice Italian restaurant or an Olive Garden, go ahead. I tried to do that with a straight face. maybe skip the sangiovese, skip the Chianti, and give a Barbera a try. I think this would work well with some of those cuisines. If you want to even have this with veal, I think a darker meat would be good with this. I would not have this with a steak, though. I think this is not enough for a steak. It needs way more tannins to be able to go well with a steak. So there you go. Give Barbera a try. I think you'll enjoy it. When we're out at a nice restaurant, we're often intimidated by an overwhelming wine list and the knowledge gap between the sommelier and us. And in researching this week, I found that sommeliers across the country stated overwhelmingly that most customers started the conversation with, "I'm sorry, I don't know more about wine." And it pains them to hear this. I think we have in our heads this notion of this movie version of this snooty French sommelier that just looks down on their customers and is judging them for not knowing their wines that well. Today's sommelier is a new generation, and they're very different from what we might think. They are in the hospitality industry. Nothing brings them more joy than helping you have a great experience with the wine, feeling comfortable, feeling at home, and coming back. So when you go to your doctor, you don't say, "Hey, sorry, I don't know more about internal medicine," as you're trying to describe what's going wrong with you. So when you're at a restaurant, have kind of a similar approach when you're talking to the sommelier. Talk to them like you would talk to a friend about wine. Don't worry about using terms like malolactic fermentation or even acidity or tannins. Don't talk in any way you're not comfortable talking about wine. All you need to say is something like, I really like Pinot Noirs and wines that have, the flavor of cherries, and I don't really like wines that are too oaky. And tonight I'm planning on having the duck. What are 2 or 3 wines you would recommend for someone like me that's going to have that for dinner tonight? You have given that person all they need to whittle down that extensive wine list and pick a couple of glasses or bottles that are going to be really good fits for your palate and the meal that you're going to have tonight. So let's stop being intimidated. Let's stop worrying about what the sommelier is thinking of us and view this as a team effort and a conversation. And as soon as we can do that, the better off we're all going to be. We're going to enjoy our meals more. We're going to enjoy our wine more. And our sommeliers are going to have joy knowing that they helped us have a great time. That does it for this week. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If so, give me a like below and please consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. Also, please join me next week as we move on to what is arguably the most famous wine region in the world and one of my personal favorites. We're heading to Bordeaux. I look forward to seeing you then. Until that time, keep trying new wines and cheers.